Hi, it's me, Jessica. Thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful, misty morning here in Southern California. I am making this video the night before the midterm elections in the United States and the night before the lunar eclipse in Taurus. So you might understand why on the eve of these events, I was like, what can I bring forth that would actually be helpful and would not simply be adding to the noise that already exists? And the answer came to me partially inspired by this regenerative gardening class that I'm taking from Farmer Rishi. In this class, one of the things he asked us to do was visualize being a bird and flying over the land that we're working with. So in this case, my garden. And he asked us to imagine being this bird and like, would this bird have any reason to stop here? Would this habitat offer anything to this bird in terms of nourishment or hydration or safety or any of those things? And obviously, this was pretty mind-blowing because I often think about the land here in terms of wanting to make it nourishing and beautiful for my friends and my family and myself, of course. I often think about the land in terms of how what I do here affects, the earth herself, but I never had drilled down and thought like, oh, there's a lot of things I can do pretty easily back here that are gonna make that bird want to land here and hang out. And I'll even put up some pictures of this in action. So he had us do this exercise maybe 3 weeks ago, and since then, this place has become even more of a mecca for birds of all different kinds and also other pollinators. And then also the things that I've been doing with the soil for a long time, I realized, oh, it's a pretty good habitat for a lot of underground creatures around here too. So we're not gonna go into a regenerative gardening pep talk. I will put Farmer Rishi's information down below. He's a super interesting teacher, but let's talk about habitat in terms of our meditation and prayer practices. And that's really what I came up with as like something that might actually be helpful, not only this week, whatever happens, but in the weeks to come. So let's imagine that our magic or our mystical power or our kind of spiritual experiences are that bird, okay, that's flying over the garden. What can we do to make it easier for that bird of our magic or our spirituality or our mystical experiences to not only land here, but want to stay here? And I really want to avoid today talking about habitat in terms of like, I got this new meditation bench, or this crystal is da da da. I want to talk about habitat in a way that does not imply that we must buy anything, okay, to like get ready to have a mystical or spiritual experience. Instead, I want to suggest, rather, instead of buying things to create a habitat, that there are things that we can do to create habitats within us so that the bird not only wants to land here, but wants to spend time together and offer her gifts to us. So I hope that metaphor doesn't get too confused. I think I'll clear it up as we move forward. Okay, so one thing that I find is very helpful in terms of encouraging spiritual experiences to happen is the position of the body. And especially in these times when there's like so much screen stuff going on, the position of the hands. So, for instance, let's say that I want to create more of a prayer practice, but I don't really know how. It would be a very good idea to decide on a position to hold the body in and a position to keep the hands in, and telling ourselves, this is my prayer position, okay? And then wonderful things start to happen every time we take that position. Even if we're not clear about how our prayer session is going to go, we know this is how I put my body, this is how I put my hands, and I guarantee you the praying that happens when you repeat that habitat of the position of the body and the hands is going to be very beneficial and profound. Let me give you a very clear example, okay? I have begun to pray laying down on my bed, on top, and I've been sort of making this sort of hand mudra over the area of my heart. And so in this situation, my work is to lay down and put my hands like this. And it's quite fascinating how that repetition of that body position has enhanced my ability to pray. It's transformed the content of what I'm praying about. And also, and perhaps most significantly in this era that we're living in, it instantly, when my hands go like this, instantly, my whole body and in my, view, my energy field completely changes flavor in the most wonderful way. And that makes my praying less desperate and more beautiful, more of a reunion rather than this sort of like, begging, asking, clawing kind of prayer. So that's one example. Another example about creating a habitat where our spiritual experiences, just like that bird flying across the garden, want to land is, with meditation, and especially as here in the Northern Hemisphere, we're moving into the cooler months. I love to, here, I'll show you. I know I've said this before as well. I love to, in the winter months, create a habitat for my meditation practice by simply putting a blanket, I'm usually sitting kind of on the ground, but putting a blanket around me like this so that my hands are within the blanket. This small action repeated 100% clues in all my levels of self that we are in meditation now, because I don't wear this any other time. This wrapping in the blanket is my way of creating habitat for my meditation practice. So this is what I have for you today. I really want to encourage you to find your own ways. And again, this is not about buying something, okay? This isn't even about like cleaning out some special area of the room. Of course you can do that. That's your choice. But what I'm talking about is simpler and easier, and it's a really good way to show up for your magic, for your spiritual gifts to arrive, just like that bird, right? By creating these small actions that create a habitat for that bird to come land and like hang out with you and know, oh, she's laying on her bed, her hands are like this. Oh, it's prayer time. Oh, she's sitting and wrapped in her blanket. Oh, it's meditation time. And I think the reason why the word habitat and habit, they're very close, and that keys us into something very important, is that what it is, it can be a small action, but it's got to be repeated over and over again to build power, to build magic for us. So let me check my nose. Let me take this off because I'm not meditating right now. I'm talking to you. And if that seems too simple, laying down or putting your body in a certain position with a certain hand position or wrapping yourself in a blanket, the next level of creating a habitat is one that I've recommended to folks for a long time, and that is find refuge in a special piece of music and let that music, that musical space, become the habitat where your magic can happen, where your spiritual experience or your mystical experience can bloom in front of you. So you can use music in that way. And I'll also say this, just like everything in our lives, the habitats that we create for our practices may need to be adjusted and changed every once in a while. So if you already have some active habitats where that bird of magical experience or mystical or spiritual experience can land, you might want to check them out and be like, I've been meditating in this spot in my house for a really long time, and I think I'm going to take it outside. Or, I always thought that to pray I had to sort of kneel down or prostrate myself, and actually I'm gonna switch that up. Or perhaps you sort of are starting to consider this and you're like, my altar needs to change to reflect the magic and the spirituality and the mysticism that I'm practicing at this time. So that is always open for exploration. So with creating a habitat, we want to have a habit, right? We want to make a habit out of it. It gets really easy when we have a habit, which means we're going to repeat that small action. And also at any time, we are welcome to take a step back and look at the habitats or habits we've already got set up and amend them, expand them, change them so that they really fit our needs as they are today. And I also deeply hope it's kind of my life's work, but I deeply hope that the things that you find in my books, the things that you hear on your headphones, and the over 100 audio meditations that I have on my site, and also if you've ever come to a live event in person with me, I hope that all those things, those recordings of meditations, the things you find in the books, I hope they are all a habitat within which you can really create, discover, and receive the full breadth of your magical, spiritual, and mystical practices and gifts. So create your habitats, amend your habitats, become aware that if you set up these little actions, these little significant positions of the body, positions of the hand, using a special piece of music, connecting with nature herself. These are all things that are available to us all. And I really want to encourage us to lean into these things. I love this idea of the bird flying over the garden. Does she have reason to stop here? Yes, she does. And we can do the same thing with our mystical, spiritual practices and gifts. We can create habitats where they want to come and stay with us, offer us their gifts, and we can offer them this wonderful habitat. So I hope we all do okay this week. I'll be back next week. I'm sending you lots of love. For more things, youaremagicla.com.